I'm Gary YouTube from Cultaholic.com and welcome to the latest thrilling installment of the latest bout of latest Gary YouTubing that we're going to do like all the famous Gary YouTubers. We're just like them, honestly, but we do the wrestling, which means we're better than they are. Joining me today is yet another Gary YouTube who also loves to do the Gary YouTube. He seems to have the head and the shoulders and the kitchenette of Sam Driver. How are you doing, Gary?
Yeah, I'm all right. It's just really warm today. It's really warm, and because of where I live, there's no wind. So when you open the windows, it just sits. How about you?
I've just walked 40 minutes to get to the office, and I'm a fat man, and I wore a jumper, Sam, and I'm absolutely dripping. Anyway, one man who has sweated numerous times during his professional wrestling career because he does the wrestling's really hard is Chris Jericho, and we're here to speak about Chris Jericho today. Are you ready to have some numbers thrown at you, Sam? Because I found this amazing when I looked at Wikipedia earlier today. One-time Undisputed Champion, three-time WWE World Heavyweight Champion, two-time WCW Heavyweight Champion, 9 times, still a record by the way, even though WWE won't tell you, Intercontinental Champion, 2-time United States Champion, 1-time European Champion, 1-time Hardcore Champion, 7-time Tag Team Champion. He's even held the Bragging Rights Trophy of 2009. He's even won the Slammy Award for the Most Extreme Moment of the Year 2014. He's a WCW Television Champion, a 4-time Cruiserweight Champion, an ECW Television Champion, of course AEW's first ever Le Champion, the only professional wrestler in the history of the business to lose that world title belt while eating at a steakhouse. And most agonizingly, crucially, it's just horrible, he almost had the name Jack Action before somebody told a very young Chris Jericho that is a stupid name.
Absolutely
what
not.
Could have been
I want Jack Action. Less of this Jericho
Jack Action.
bollocks.
Could you imagine Jack Action all over the world? Bloody hell, I'm sure there's a porn star called Jack Action. It's a very porn star in it. When I say Chris Jericho to you, Sam, what's your overriding emotions?
First image is the dual championship, just holding the belts and just looking menacing with the tiny little ponytail. That's it. But like, me and you were WCW kids, so I think we were lucky in a way that we got a little bit of Jericho before he went off and became this massive star. But yeah, it's sort of intrinsically linked back. It's just nostalgia. Even though he's still going, when I think of Jericho, I just get sort of warm, fuzzy, classic wrestling memories.
Mount Rushmore territory, isn't he?
Yeah.
Gotta be as we're sat here in the year 2020. But anyway, let's get on with some tier ranking things. Sam, who sat there, press the intro button.
There we go.
So just in case you haven't been here before, of course, we're here to put we've got 15 of Chris Jericho's crucial gimmicks throughout his 30-year career, Sam.
That's another just astonishing. I mean, of course he's been wrestling 30 years. Look at the age of him and look at how long we've known he exists. But when you see it and when you hear it, it just sounds odd, doesn't it?
It baffles you. Look at him doing his lion salts here in the year of 2020.
It terrifies
People are going,
us now.
oh, he's so old, he's over the hill. He's the best, one of the best adverts for DDP yoga going today. Well, he's astonishing.
And the other thing is as well, he gets it up here, and that's the important thing. If you can get it up here, it doesn't matter how old and broken down you are, you can still give something entertaining to the industry, and that's what he's doing. So
yeah. So 15 crucial steps in Chris Jericho's miraculous career we have to rank in this tier thingy here. We have several tiers ranking from the best, lovely, all right, just about bearable, and get in the bin. I reckon the bin might be a bit sparse today. Who knows?
I reckon so.
But we're kicking things off, and I'm not even going to lie, I've never seen this version of Chris Jericho do the wrestling, but I saw it on the internet today, and I had to include it because way back in 1990, I think he might have been about 19 years old, Chris Jericho was given the name, Sam, Cowboy Chris Jericho. He was Cowboy Chris Jericho without the H as far as I could see, a cowboy from Casper, Wyoming. And you might be asking, Sam, how the hell did he get that name? He was wrestling for the Canadian Wrestling Connection, the CWC, the Cruiserweight Classic. It all... What am I saying anyway? He was wrestling against Lance Storm, who at the time was billed as Lance T Storm.
Right,
what the
okay,
T stands
yeah.
for, who knows? The 2nd of October 1990, a 10-minute time limit draw those two lads had.
10-minute time limit draw.
Yeah, Chris Jericho was apparently given the gimmick by the promoter who had already made the promotional posters and leaflets and all that for the event. Cowboy Chris Jericho was promoted. Cowboy Chris Jericho turned up. Chris Jericho said in his book, I think it was, "I hate cowboys. I don't want to be a cowboy."
Well,
but he was anyway because he was new. He was new. What was he meant to do?
Well, Bret Hart likes cowboys. Bret Hart made a very fetching cowboy.
Bret Hart is a cowboy.
Yeah, but Chris Jericho is a cowboy. Just to be frank, you sort of mentioned this because you were so giddy at the fact you'd found it out. I had no idea about this. You told me about this about an hour ago, and I've been sat just like, what? Just to anybody that'll listen, just like, Chris Jericho was a cowboy. It's so alien. Because you think of Jericho, you think of somebody who is the master of his own destiny. Like, he controls his own gimmicks, and he squeezes every last little bit out of them. And for him to just be thrown out there as a green, young rookie and just told you're a cowboy, kid, and not even a cowboy, a misspelled cowboy, get to the ring.
And that was the thing he was saying. He was saying, I wanted to turn it down, but what am I supposed to do? I'm brand new in the industry. If I turn it down straight away, I get a reputation of being difficult to work with. That hampers me going forward. So out I go. Because just imagine what Chris Jericho... You think about how strapping, good-looking man he is now. 19 years old Chris Jericho surely does not fit the cowboy mould, does he not?
No, when you think of cowboy, you sort of think of older,
grizzled,
like John Wayne grizzled
spitting
style.
tobacco.
Yeah. Clint Eastwood. You don't think of like a young chipper.
But I've scuppered us straight away. I know he had one match as the gimmick.
It's got to go in the bin.
Where do we
for
put
sure.
Cowboy Chris Jericho? Where do we put Cowboy Chris Jericho from Casper, Wyoming in this tier rankings of Chris Jericho's gimmicks? I think it's in the best. It's not in the best.
It's got to go in the bin, but I want it so badly to be in the best. I want it so badly to be in the best, so I want somebody to make him bring this gimmick back for one night. Just one night
only.
One night only.
Maybe Sam, he has a feud with Matt Hardy in AEW. Jericho brings back several of his gimmicks because Matt Hardy put some sort of spell on him. Matt Hardy has his 25 gimmicks anyway. Magic can be made, which I think you and your professional wrestling tastes would hate.
If I got to see Cowboy Chris Jericho, I wouldn't care. And I think the more, just on that point, I think the more that we're seeing these matches, the better they're getting at it. And so for me, it's sort of getting more and more acceptable. But it'll still never be as good as rest hold, hit the ropes, rest hold, hit the ropes, rest hold, hit the ropes, rest hold. Like in the ring, I think it's just better.
But there we have it. Just go and if someone could find anything more about Cowboy Chris Jericho from Casper, Wyoming, I want to know. But moving on from there, of course he went around the world a bit, but the next big step in Chris Jericho's career is Thrillseeker Chris Jericho. And Sam, they are going to rock America, you know.
We're gonna rock America. It's so good. Like, it's one of the things I think Jack once excitedly showed me, and it's stuck with us forever since then. But yeah, if you've never seen it, the Thrillseekers Rock America, that's all you got to search on YouTube and sit down and watch Lance Storm and Chris Jericho take you on a lovely Saturday out. Basically, they'd go down the beach, they go to the arcade,
every young lad has a best pal. Every young lad has a best pal. They go around to the zoo, they feed the gorillas, then somehow Jericho jumps into the gorilla's enclosure and he's fed like a gorilla from a great height by Lance Storm.
He makes Lance Storm play an arcade game and he's crap at it and he's just rinsing him the entire time. It's so good. It's so
They
bloody good.
They ride horses, they do bungee jump. Any normal Saturday afternoon, the Thrill-Seekers represent one of the greatest promos in professional wrestling history.
It was one of those things that when I went out to shoot that thing with Cornette, in a former life in a different place, and it was one of the first things I think I asked him about when we got comfortable to the point where I could just talk to him. But it was like, asked him about that promo and he was like, oh man, no, like we shot so much of that stuff in my own back garden. So all of the stuff you see whenever they're just in the woods and having fun and running around and the opening interview bit and everything, that's all Cornette's back garden apparently. And then the rest is like, yeah, we just took him out. We just took him out for the day.
Just the thought of just because the gorilla enclosure scene is so like burning in my head at the minute. Just imagine the gorilla enclosure in the back of Jim Cornette's garden. Jim Cornette being like the Joe Exotic for gorillas. I find that astonishing. Anyway, we should speak more about the Thrillseekers action. It was, of course, in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, run by Jim Cornette. They were known for a brief period before that, Lance Storm and Chris Jericho. A sudden impact. Whoa.
Yes.
You'll never see it coming. Whoa. Sudden impact. They would feud with the likes of the Rock and Roll Express and the Heavenly Bodies and a few more legendary tag teams as well.
Yeah.
But just for that promo package alone, Sam, it is... Because you can tell they are trying so hard to be like cutting edge and 90s and like, whoa, we're so cool and you can aspire to be us. And ladies, you want to be us. And fellas, you can only dream of living a life like us going down to the arcade.
I think it was supposed to like just show that they were like really pure baby faces as well. It's like, well, look, we do the stuff that you do. And it's like, they don't think they're better than the working man and like... They don't. I think it was just one of those packages where it tried so hard to get them over as baby faces, but it just comes off as a ball of cheese. It's brilliant. There's a bit where they're in Velcro suits, and there's a big like Velcro wall, and they got to bounce on this like big like almost like a bouncy castle pad. They've got to like jump on that and try and stick to the wall, and like Jericho's trying to help Lance.
And do you see the promo at the start of the? Because obviously you get the promo package, but on this clip on YouTube, there's a little interview. It's like a Smoky Mountain Wrestling press conference.
Yeah.
And Jericho especially, even his promos weren't that good back in the day, which shows we all have to start somewhere. Even Chris Jericho.
There's a getting on level.
Here I am. I'm going to do the wrestling really well here in Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Coming to a town near you. Watch out. Sudden impact. But Thrillseeker Chris Jericho, where are we going?
Just for that promo alone, it's got to go in the best. But it can't.
I know it can't. Sam, where are we going? I'm going to leave it up to you.
I'd say... I'm not going to judge it on anything but the promo. I can't. It can't go in the best, so just put it in lovely, lovely, lovely for now.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. You've got to imagine matches between... I know they were young, but Chris Jericho, Lance Storm and the Rock and Roll Express, you've got to imagine they were all right, at least.
That's the thing, though, as well. It's like young, but really hungry to prove themselves. And Smoky Mountain wasn't just any other indie. I think it had a TV deal and stuff, so it was like the first big step, maybe. But I think... Lovely, lovely, lovely.
And then we move on to a man who, I'm going to just speak some Spanish here, Sam. Corazon de Leon.
Oh, Lionheart.
Lionheart. Yes. Lionheart Chris Jericho, who got his name, I learned today, via a fan poll. The fans had a choice between He-Man and Lionheart, and obviously picked Lionheart. But Chris Jericho found out that very few people cared enough to vote on the poll, so was devastated anyway.
I mean... You've just told me there that we missed out on Cowboy Jericho. Well, we got Cowboy Jericho, but we didn't get it
Cowboy
properly.
Jericho for one match, yeah.
But we missed out on
Jack
He-Man.
Action.
We missed out on He-Man.
And Jack Action as well.
And Jack Action. We could have had He-Man, Jack Action, Cowboy Jericho. That would have been unreal.
His career could have gone the opposite direction to what it has.
That's like... That run, that first set of gimmicks is a bit like...
Yeah. But obviously this was just more... It was less of a gimmick, more of a nickname, more of a moniker for a young, up-and-coming, honourable baby face who obviously made his name in Mexico with CMLL in particular, where he had an 11-month reign as the NWA World Middleweight Champion, which is impressive as balls.
That is impressive. And Mexico, CMLL especially, was it still EMLL at the time maybe? But that's, I think, currently the oldest active wrestling company in the world. It's a very prestigious, very action-based promotion. So, you know, you need to really be tough to fit in with that and work that style of match. It's all really, really, really for the visual flair. And obviously he would go on to Japan. You'd have, like, Ultra Lag, you'd have all of that stuff. So this was Jericho, I guess, really getting serious. Maybe if he's down Mexico, he's about to move on, but I don't really know too much about this one, so I'm going to leave it up to you.
As far as I could see, Sam, it was quite literally a nickname for a babyface who was very honourable and would never break the rules. White meat, blonde hair, could do no wrong. This obviously got him to ECW because Mick Foley, I think, was had his attention caught by Jericho doing this, well, just wrestling under this moniker. That got him his role in ECW. Obviously, he did that role in ECW. That then took him to WCW, and he started off in WCW as Lionheart, and that sort of petered out because for whatever reason, they didn't see too much in this white meat babyface, and that led to the heel turn. And we'll speak more on what came after that in a bit. But as for Lionheart, I mean, he came back at ECW One Night Stand. I think that was my first proper exposure to Lionheart, Chris Jericho. Obviously heard the nickname because it was mentioned in WWF back in the day. But the ECW fans seemed to be happy when he came out in his Lionheart jacket and the yellow and black and all that malarkey, so I guess it was all right.
Yeah, I mean, it's a throwback, but I'd say just for the sake of it, I'm going to say it's less of a gimmick, so maybe it needs to go in like meh. Get in the middle.
We're going all right. We couldn't even put it in bearable because just thinking about Jericho being just like straight line,
this is
babyface, doesn't break the rules.
It's not really very Chris Jericho, is it? So maybe put it down.
We'll put it down. Even though he did win the ECW television title.
Everybody and their mum won that.
My mum didn't.
Sorry, mate.
I know. 1997 we go to now, and Super Liger, Sam.
Yes.
I bet you can sit here and speak about many, many hours about that match he had in the Tokyo Dome where he wore a mask and he couldn't see what he was doing, and he tried to do his drop kick and he fell off the ropes and everything went a bit sour.
Well, this is it. So it's like that's all you really need to know about it is they wanted to bring in another type of Liger. I'm apologising to anybody at home if my phone is vibrating. I forgot to put it on Do Not Disturb, and my mum is currently texting me quite viciously. Not in the subject that she's talking to me about, but she's like, it's like message.
Does she know that you put Lionheart Chris Jericho in Just About Bearable?
She might. It might be like a sense she's got. But all you need to know is they wanted to bring in another Liger. He was going to be silver. He was going to be played by Jericho. He's going to have this long hair. There is a match. It doesn't go to plan. Jericho can't really see. He can't really breathe. And he's like, absolutely not. I'm never doing that. Not again. Not happening. That's it. And it was a cool concept, and it was something that I think could have been massive for him. But again, he would have been hampered by having the mask. He would have been hampered by the gimmick because I don't think it really suits him very much. I'd say, like, for something that, like, Liger is one of my favourite wrestlers of all time. It's one of my favourite gimmicks of all time. But for something like that, with Jericho, it just doesn't work. So I think it actually has to be pretty near the bottom.
Where would you go? Because the concept of it, I really like.
Concept's amazing, yeah.
And the attire as well, with the blonde hair coming out and the antithesis to Liger, It's like Mordecai before Mordecai.
Yeah, basically. It's really cool, but it's just like, in terms of like, because this is the thing, are we talking about like the legs of the gimmick or just how we think about the gimmick?
Just where we think it goes in this tier when we hear the gimmick and talk about what he did in the gimmick, I guess.
Well, I think it could have been a lot higher, but because it petered out to a grinding halt pretty quickly, it can't really go anywhere near those top 3 tiers, I don't think.
Yeah. We'll put it bearable?
Yeah.
Bin or bearable?
Bearable. I think because at least it had a very good look to it, even if it was for like a flash,
Yeah. Apparently this was sort of him being, because obviously WCW and New Japan had a working relationship back in the 90s. This is him being sent on a sort of excursion, which was supposed to last a lot longer than it did, presumably, because he wrestled more matches for New Japan without the mask, which must have been weird.
Yeah. I mean, the public probably wouldn't have known any better, but...
Yeah. But then he goes back to WCW, obviously turns heel, and we get what I'm going to call conspiracy victim Jericho, because this was the first Chris Jericho I knew, and this is one of, if not the best Chris Jerichos. If you haven't seen anything from the WCW Cruiserweight division, this was a division very much just centered on the action. Yeah, fantastic wrestlers, go out there and start the show, hot start, flips and all that malarkey, get the crowd up out their chairs. But Chris Jericho, while he did all that stuff, obviously not as many flips as other people would, he had the character work nailed down better than anybody else in that division, in my opinion. And it was unbelievable.
Yeah, I think you could sort of draw a parallel to Drew Gulak with 205 Live. He was like the guy...
PowerPoint Drew Gulak, yeah.
Yeah, the one who's sort of... He's not going to play by those, wider rules of let's do flippy, crazy stuff. But he is going to be the ultimate character guy in terms of that roster. And in terms of WCW's Cruiserweight division, I think Bischoff summed it up and actually stated that he wanted them to be the car crash in the middle of his show that people couldn't look away from. So he wanted them to go out there and do these amazing matches, but he wasn't prepared to pay them for it, or pay them anymore, or do like really put the time and effort in that he put in toward like a Hogan, basically. But he knew they were valuable, and he knew they brought eyes to the product, but there was very much a ceiling there. But
yeah, I guess Jericho sort of like how good he was as a character sort of not necessarily held him back, but I think it did hamper maybe his perspective within the company, because obviously it would peter out, and there was a reason why WWF were interested back in the summer of '99.
Yeah.
So but sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, it was just sort of, as I said, he was the guy. You had everybody going mental. Jericho was the guy that was sort of holding it together, I think, in terms of an entertainment value beyond just the ring work. But yeah, unfortunately, he would be seen as, I guess, not as important as an asset to the company, which is criminal. But then again, this is the same guy that got rid of Austin, so
yeah. But he was injured, so he deserved the phone calls or the fax, whatever it was, Sam. Anyway, so Jericho turned heel, becoming the conspiracy victim Jericho, I'm labeling him as, in 1997 by slaying the knee of Rey Mysterio with a toolbox. He would then go on sort of a run of nicking people's things, like he nicked Juventud Guerrera's mask, and he began to basically collect the trophies of his victims as he went on. And then eventually, Dean Malenko, who Chris Jericho would obviously never admit was a better wrestler than him, even though he probably was, he won the Cruiserweight Championship, and then they started Chris Jericho off as the conspiracy victim. He was the victim of a conspiracy. He blamed J.J. Dillon, TNT Television, Ted Turner, the US government. There was a fantastic promo he did outside the US government building. Unbelievable. Everybody was blamed. And most importantly, this is the gimmick that gave us the 1004 holes promo.
Yeah, just the fade, like the whole promo is genius, but doesn't it fade to advert? And it comes back and it's still reading.
Yeah, it's still going.
And it's so good. But was it Jericho who goes in hard on Malenko's dad? I'm trying to remember who that was.
Because it was the whole thing where Malenko then came out as I forgot the name off the top of my head completely. He came out under the mask and then took it off, and then I think it must have been.
I think it might have been Jericho, but yeah, there was. I remember distinctly there was this whole angle with Malenko's dad and brother getting dragged into it, and it just being like just proper horrible, like really despicable heel work for the time. And it's the sort of stuff I don't think we really see anymore. It was the stuff that was very good, super back in the day, like old territories, that was really good late 80s, early 90s, but it's just sort of moved on, which is a shame.
But also sometimes good, because sometimes wrestling does things in a very tasteless way these days. Anyway, and shout out to Ralphus as well. Big old Ralphus.
Ralphus, man. Yeah. And the Monday Night Jericho shirt.
It all just worked. He should have been. Obviously, back in the 90s, there was a stigma more towards smaller man. Chris Jericho's not a smaller man, as he's hench as anything.
Yeah, well, he was a lot more lean back then, I guess. That's the way you can put it. He was still huge, but he was a lot more lean.
But this Chris Jericho's got to go in the best, hasn't it, Sam?
Absolutely.
Straight in the best with that Chris Jericho. We then move on to, obviously, Chris Jericho leaving WCW very amicably, despite what, the crap he was given. The little, what am I saying here? The short straw he was given? The little hand he was given, I was about to say there. Which makes no sense whatsoever. Anyway, he obviously wrote Eric Bischoff a lovely letter when he... The dusty...
Just trying to come up with random combinations there.
The severed head. He obviously wrote the letter to Bischoff, left on very amicable terms, was picked up by WWE, handed the Y2J nickname, which he thought was going to be a move, I believe, but Vince McMahon was like, no, you are Y2J. You are it. Which I'm playing off the Y2K thing, which scared the world more than COVID-19 back in the day.
There was, this is another one I remember reading something about recently. I'm sure with the Walls of Jericho, it had about 1,000 different names, and Jericho hated them all. The creative had come together and put together this whole document of here's some catchphrases, and here's some nicknames, and here's this stuff, and here's the colours that we think, and your standard sort of thing. We're super excited about getting you on board. Here's all our ideas, and apparently the names were just terrible. It was stuff like the Millennium Crash and weird things like that. And eventually, I think he got Walls of Jericho out of it. But I think it took him going away and actually writing a few down and going, one of these only. I don't want any of your terrible ideas.
Yeah, I think you nicked the Walls of Jericho name from a band's album.
I'm sure it's a Halloween album. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You've triggered something in my head there. That is correct, Sam. Anyway, we obviously know what happened here. The countdown to the Millennium Timer, the promo with The Rock, the big debut against Road Dogg on Smackity Down. He initially flirted with Triple H for the title for a bit when he won it, then they took it off him, which is, wow. Oh, that riles me up to this day, that does, Sam. But then things took a nosedive quite quickly with this stuff where, you say a nosedive, but it was a clear, like, sort of demotion from what we thought he was going to do when he first arrived.
Yeah,
because he started with a...
Definitely,
they
took him straight off the boil. It was proper, like, coming in, massive reaction. Unbelievable, they've got Jericho, this is going to be amazing. They got everything they could out of it, and then, very quickly just went, whoop, and turned the hob off.
Yeah, stuff with China, which, they did well with under the circumstances, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's as you said, it's just working within the circumstances, isn't it? Like, that's all you can really do. But that match with China was by far and away China's best match. And, there is always some good will come of these terrible booking situations, no matter how long it takes for us to realise it.
There was some good of it. Obviously, the stuff he did with Chris Benoit and Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 2000, stuff like that. It was all good. But we have that's the sort of initial period before we get to the Invasion angle and the Undisputed Championship and all that. So initially, Y2J kicks off like a house on fire. The house gets put out, and it sort of peters down into just him being really bloody entertaining. He would always come out, always would get one of the loudest cheers of the night, obviously working babyface back then. Always a highlight of the show, but never really amounted to too much. Obviously, lots of Intercontinental title reigns and stuff like that, but never really pierced that.
Yeah,
I don't want to
it
say
didn't,
glass
it
ceiling,
didn't
but you know
really
what I mean.
feel like they were ever going to properly pull the trigger on him. Like, he might have ended up being just a career, not mid-carder, but, upper mid-carder. Lower.
That's it, because my perception, because initially when Jericho won the championship back in the end of 2001, I would have been 9. And my perception of Chris Jericho was like, what the hell's he doing winning the world title? Because obviously me watching for the previous 2 years or whatever, he was the Intercontinental champion. Yeah. So where we go, is it the best? He still was fantastic with the gimmick. It obviously didn't produce lots of world titles and whatever, but the gimmick itself was the showmanship and the
iconic moments in it, isn't there? Like within this gimmick, that's like,
and the stuff with Stephanie McMahon as well. We can't forget to mention that he would just endlessly take the piss out of Stephanie McMahon, and some of it is aged like milk, but some of it was also fantastic.
Get it in the best. Go on.
Why the hell not? Y2J Chris Jericho? Because obviously you look at people nicking the hairstyle here today in 2020 and stuff like that. It's lasted the test of time, hasn't it? I've got a question for you, Sam.
Yes.
Did you know that Chris Jericho defeated Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock on the same night?
No, I didn't.
Did you not?
No.
Because he did. He's mentioned it a few times.
Have we?
Yeah. It's quite big news, but yeah, of course we're going here straight. Undisputed champion Chris Jericho is the title we're given this gimmick. He was one of the few beneficiaries of the Invasion angle.
Yeah, by far.
Is that fair to say? Obviously.
I mean, well, the benefit that Jericho had was that he was not WCW anymore, so it was so closely linked time-wise to him jumping that you could sort of get away with slotting it in there that he was like an early jumper and he sacked them off or whatever, but he was still close enough to that WCW career where it felt like he was still a big part of that whole thing, even though he wasn't really a central figure in the actual Invasion itself, like initially anyway.
Yeah, it's just on the surface of things. You think about how popular Chris Jericho was. As I say, back in the day when he was Y2J, always one of the biggest pops of the night when he came out, always got a massive reaction and was very entertaining. It was weird how they thought a heel turn is what was necessary to get him a world title, like an actual world, because we know he won the belt for a very short, when it's not official, is it? He had that win against Triple H. But for an official world title reign in WWE, he needed that heel turn, and I just find that weird. Even though...
He's just such a good heel, though.
Yeah, he is a good heel. But he's a good baby. He was a good babyface back then.
Yeah, but I guess we hadn't really had a chance to see full-blown heel Jericho fly yet. And it's a better time than ever, I guess. If you're going to turn somebody into a horrible heel with the mic skills of somebody like Jericho, then it's just ready to make another babyface, isn't it? To come and climb and dethrone him.
And the interesting thing was, obviously, he was very goofy and outlandish when he was in WCW as the conspiracy theory guys we spoke about earlier. But it was sort of the same. It looked the same. The outfits were the same, but it was just a bit toned down. And he was a bit more into arrogance rather than delusion, if there's any much of a difference there.
He's slightly more reserved with it as well. It's sort of, it would bubble up, but it wasn't quite as cartoony, I guess, as the WCW one was.
Yeah, and we can speak about the issues he had when he was world champion. It was obvious he was such a transitional champion, just waiting for Triple H to come back from his injury, and the stuff with Stephanie McMahon, which once was fantastic, now was just a distraction. When he was Undisputed Champion, we had the stuff with Lucy the dog. Oh, it makes you angry, so it does when you look back on it. But there we have Undisputed Champion Chris Jericho. This is a weird one to put in a tier ranking thing, because he was good, but he was such an afterthought, and as we say, transitional champion. It sort of hampers any sort of perspective you have on it, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's a shame because it's one of my favourite Jerichos in terms of, like, when I look back, is just that whole era I love, but, like, it's one of those images that just pops into my head whenever he's mentioned, is just holding both belts and just that entire look and everything from that time. But you're right, there's not really a lot there. He was a transitional champion. He was, like, his days were quite openly numbered. Like, he's just waiting and waiting and waiting. But it did give us some entertainment. We can't, like, just write it off completely. No. But I don't think it's anywhere near the top tier.
All right, is that too harsh?
See, I think all right might be too harsh. Maybe bottom of lovely, lovely, lovely.
I'll make sure it's the bottom of lovely, lovely, lovely when we get to the end.
Yeah.
So then, obviously, we move on through the rest of 2002 into 2003. We had if Undisputed Champion Jericho is the trunk, we have a different heel being a branch, who I haven't put it as a proper gimmick in this tier ranking malarkey, because I've called him Very Jealous Jericho. He would feud with Shawn Michaels. He would feud with Shawn Michaels, who was his idol, and he was very jealous of Shawn Michaels, his idol. Goldberg, he would feud with for a bit. Jeff Hardy. Then we'll get into the team with Christian. We'd obviously turn Chris Jericho face heading into WrestleMania 20, but the next big milestone gimmick for me for Chris Jericho, because I thought he was going through the motions as babyface Chris Jericho with Trish Stratus. No, I love Trish, and this, that, and the other. No, Christian's taking her away. And I guess the stuff with Christian when they were tag teaming was obviously fantastic and entertaining. The stuff with the towels, and they were both good heels. But Rockstar Chris Jericho, 2005 is the next milestone gimmick I'm going to go with here for this tier ranking malarkey. Jericho turns heel heading into the summer with WWE Champion John Cena, Sam, and we have the Battle of the Bands. Rockstar Chris Jericho and his band Fozzy come on, play their actual music. Nobody likes it, and it plays into it because he's a heel. God, how funny how that one worked out. And he feuds with John Cena, and John Cena's rapping. Bad, bad man, I don't care what anybody says, is an absolute anthem with a capital A, a fantastic song. But what you're thinking about Chris Jericho, the Rockstar 2005 SummerSlam, that sort of era?
It leans into my views on Fozzy, because I'm not a fan of Fozzy, and I'm supposed to boo them.
Hey, Sam, stop there. Enemy, their cover of SOS.
I don't like the cover of SOS.
Oh, Samuel, I'm a big ABBA fan as it goes. It's fantastic.
I was born into a pretty heavy ABBA house, so I think just the fact that he had the gall to do it, I'm not allowed to like it. But no, Fozzy have gotten a hell of a lot better. That's something that's worth knowing, a hell of a lot better. But around this time, Fozzy were slightly different, and I just found it a little bit midlife crisisy, but at the same time, that's sort of the point.
It's so weird because he's heel Rockstar Chris Jericho going up against babyface John Cena. So you're thinking, yes, the pompous Rockstar with his crap band, it works as a gimmick. But then you think, that's his actual band that he's trying to get off the floor. And it's this weird paradox you find yourself in.
And that's one of the weirder things is, I think for bands like Fozzy, it must be so weird, because usually when you're a band, like, you go through a phase where you can't even get a gig, and then you get a gig, and then you get... And it seems like he really tried to do that with Fozzy, and he tried to just treat it like a real band and work from the ground up, and it's paid off for them now, obviously, because look at them, they're everywhere. But, like, back then it must have just been like, you know, we've got X, Y, and Z, let's crack it, and let's get on with it, and then, we're going to be on TV. And then all of a sudden they're just out there, you know, they might be playing to like 1,000 people a night and they're out there and there's 20,000 people on Raw. Like, that must have been proper weird. But then at the same time, it felt a bit weird bringing that real life thing into this. But then if anybody was going to do it and make it work, it would have been Jericho. It's like a Rubik's Cube, this one.
And he gave himself a lovely haircut. He had the sort of shorter, what's it called?
Like
bouncy hair?
Like a bob, sort of.
A bob. He had that going on. Obviously, the promos were always fantastic because he was an actual rock star, if you want to say that, and he was doing this on the professional wrestling show. This was sort of his last hurrah before he left wrestling for a couple of years. I think it was great, personally. I love Chris Jericho in this role, especially going up against John Cena.
This is the thing, though. Like, I get a bit like, whew, with like slightly cringy stuff, but I often then forget that it's supposed to make me go like, ah, and it's supposed to make me sort of a bit like, yeah. But Jericho is a rock star now. He is. So he's sort of default gimmick now is Rockstar Jericho. And without this, we might have never actually had Rockstar Jericho in the industry. So then, I don't know. I'd say it's up there for sure. I wouldn't put it in my best. I'd put it lovely, lovely, lovely. Top of lovely, lovely.
I'll put it in lovely, 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 but below Thrillseeker, above Undisputed.
Thrillseekers were in there.
There we go. And shout out to All That Remains and The Test. Those are the good songs done by Fozzy. I was a bit harsh on Fozzy there. You know what, Sam? Sing along. All that remains are the scars to remind me.
That's the
one.
one.
You don't know it? Let's move on. Chris Jericho obviously moves away from professional wrestling for a couple of years. He does some writings in some books and all that malarkey. Author Chris Jericho is not a gimmick we're going to do here on this tier ranking thing.
It'd be in the best.
He probably would be in the best. Yeah, he's a fantastic writer. Codebreaker Chris Jericho is the one I'm going with here next, Sam. We have obviously the gimmicks that go on forever with the Matrix style blue and silver writing. Yeah. Even though the Matrix was bare old by then.
Yeah. I think the last Matrix came out in 2003, I think.
Yeah, the last one. And this was 2007. Obviously, Save Us Y2J is the mystery revealed at the end. Chris Jericho has returned to WWE to save us from Randy Orton, who was starting to get... he was boring by 2007, wasn't he? The first boring Orton.
Yeah, it wasn't so much his fault, I think, by this point. It was just that they really needed to freshen him a bit. Because Orton was just a bit like... Oof. But Jericho, it was just good to have him back at this point. I remember that. I remember because I was like a wavering fan at this point. But when Jericho came back, I was like, okay, well, there's something I can watch and something I am going to enjoy and something that somebody that I know I can get behind. But I don't know.
It was a weird time because once again he came back with a glittery jacket, the glittery waistcoat. Sorry, the arms were out.
Yes,
I do apologise, Chris. But he was using many tropes that worked as a heel, but he was trying to be a baby face and it just wasn't clicking. And it fell flat, pretty quickly because he was out of sort of the feud with Orton and all that malarkey, straight into the Intercontinental title against the likes of JBL and stuff, and then. You would have to say things wouldn't pick up for Jericho until he sort of feuded with Shawn Michaels and Batista in 2008 and stuff like that. So this is a weird time because it came back. It was a fantastic... Well, it was a great way to sort of bring him back with the mystery and like, oh, who could it be? And then it reveals on the Tron, even though it was a bit of an outdated thing, the Matrix by that time. But it did fall flat quickly, and that is a shame. So I don't think it can go in the top two tiers. I don't know if we have to bring in the debut of the Codebreaker finisher, which I know he nicked from Japan.
Yeah. There's a lot better that comes after this, though. And I think it's one of those few stops that just didn't quite click, as you said. I'd say put it in all right. Because it's not ultimately terrible. Like, there's still moments that are entertaining and moments you can watch and enjoy, but it's just not something that pops up when you think of Jericho's greatest hits.
No. But people do still remember it when you mention it, which is a weird thing to say. Anyway, then we move on to Chris Jericho, who then became, of course, the best in the world at what he does. And he spoke slowly, where once before he spoke quickly. He used long words, where once before he used short words. Fantastic heel persona, very much in the same mold as Nick Bockwinkel. I've not seen too much of Nick Bockwinkel, but I've seen a few promos from his illustrious career, and Jericho is Nick Bockwinkel the second. Easy for me to say, as I sit here, a tired man. Sam, when you think of the best in the world of what he does, Chris Jericho in a suit, basically.
Yeah, I was going to say this is suited up Jericho, right? Yeah, this is. It was such a break from the Jericho we were used to, as you said. He was doing the opposite of everything, and by this point he was wearing a suit and he had short, neat hair, and he was serious all the time, and you couldn't look away because it was like he just completely snapped. Like there wasn't even that self-indulgence, like really, that you used to get out of him. Like if there was, it was done in a way where it was a lot more like looking down his nose rather than brag. But I think this is straight up one of Jack's favourite Jerichos, and I think it's straight up one of the better Jericho gimmicks that are out there, simply because it was like so against and opposite to the Jerichos we'd had before.
And it was just so simplistic in how he executed it as well, which oftentimes is like the best gimmicks when they're so simple. You're seeing this man using long words and calling you thick, and you immediately hate him. And he was good at speaking in long words, which many of us aren't, me included. But anyway, there we have it. The best in the world at what he does, straight in the best. Yep. Especially, I'm sure Matthew Gregg will like this as well. That theme he had with the Big Show. Well, it's the big. I
don't even remember that.
It keeps going. Oh my God, it's so bad, it's fantastic. Anyway, we then move on to sort of... Now, this is when I was getting back into wrestling after my lapsed time away from watching it. It's when Kane brought back the mask.
Yes.
Arse end of 2011, excuse me. And around that time, we had the gimmicks starting, which was getting me excited as well, because everyone online was saying Sting is finally going to arrive to WWE, because it was sort of the spooky, the classroom, the little girl, and woo, and all this malarkey. And then January 2012 rolls around, I'm in the first year of uni, I'm watching Raw, and out comes Chris Jericho after these spooky gimmicks, and I was disappointed. But Chris Jericho comes out, and you're thinking, whoa, Y2J is back after seeing obviously the best in the world at what he does. He comes out and you think he's going to cut wacky promos again. He's going to tell Stephanie McMahon where to go and stuff like that. But he comes out, runs around the ring, says not a word. Goes backstage, that's that. Silent Jericho we're going with here, Sam. Have you seen this when he returns? He comes out, he goes, yeah, and he threatens to speak, but he never does, and he goes backstage.
I was gonna say, I remember, I was like, this is also my blind spot, but I do remember him going to speak and then not. And then it's always a bit more cerebral. I think once, like, it got a lot deeper after the Best in the World Jericho. It got a little bit sinister, and there's just that little threat now that's under there. Like, Jericho by this point is a veteran, so you got to sort of watch out for him. He doesn't have to be doing quite as much in terms of the wackiness, so it's led to him being able to deliver these really good like promos, or not deliver them in this case, and just mess around with the crowd. And I think that alone I love. I imagine Vince was cackling as the crowd were just not knowing what to do. But other than that, I don't know. I mean, this was the setup, because obviously CM Punk was a babyface by this time. Oh yeah.
This was setting up WrestleMania 28, Punk versus Jericho. This was just a massive troll face just a massive troll job towards the entire WWE Universe. Seeing Chris Jericho comes back, even though he was a bastard the last time we saw him, it's obviously going to get everyone cheering. This was like, oh, what's happening here? What's happened to Chris Jericho? But we were going towards a heel turn, obviously. So Chris Jericho, mainly for that feud against CM Punk, heading into WrestleMania 28, the whiskey bottle, the slip on the arse. Yeah. It's all fantastic stuff, as we all know. But this was a different kind of heel Chris Jericho. We had the very in-your-face heel Chris Jericho. This was sort of like, ooh, tantalising heel Chris Jericho, who would eventually become a bastard once again, beyond any doubt. But what are your thoughts about silent Chris Jericho?
He's quite devilish, especially in that Punk feud, and I do enjoy that. There's loads of banging going on outside my flat, apparently. But yeah, I mean, the whiskey bottle especially, and just pouring it over him and just being horrible. As you said, it's a lot more sinister. It's a lot more reserved. It's a lot more like an actual sociopath. Like, he just tries to deal with things in a set way, and then eventually it bubbles up and bubbles up and bubbles up. And when things eventually completely derail, then he loses it. And I think, again, this is a flavour that you get in Jericho today, even though he's a little bit more daft now. That's still there, and it's been there ever since this timeline, I think.
Yeah. All right.
I'd say
bit higher because it was playing on our expectations of Chris Jericho, wasn't it? He's come back in the sparkly attire. He's a babyface,
and he just throws it away. Yeah, and it's. I think bottom are lovely, lovely, lovely.
Below the undisputed Chris Jericho. Beg me pardon.
Yeah.
We'll put him there. Above the undisputed Chris Jericho.
Nah.
Below the undisputed Chris Jericho.
Parallel with the undisputed.
Parallel. That's not possible until we have 2 rows. Anyway, moving on now. I haven't included this one because I've just called it sporadic Chris Jericho. This is the Chris Jericho who would return to just have a match and put somebody over. Fandango.
And he just happens to have more and more tattoos every time.
More, straight up his arm. He's got the things all going on. But then, obviously, sporadic Chris Jericho did get one massive victory, one massive unexpected victory. Battleground 2014, he beat Bray Wyatt, which I completely forgot about until going back and doing the research for this tier video. But sporadic Chris Jericho, we're not going to talk about him because it's not worth it, really.
Well, it's not so much like a gimmick, is it? It's more like just go out there and give everybody the old Jericho razzle-dazzle. So there'll be a bit of everything thrown in there.
The razzle-dazzle. But then we move on to the start of 2016. And this is where I was thinking, my God, Chris Jericho has lost the plot altogether because you speak about a midlife crisis earlier. We're getting a proper midlife crisis here because this is Rooty, Tooty, Booty. Chris Jericho. He came back for that promo with the New Day right at the start of 2016 and he started to get... It's just endless... It's how he delivered it, because it's clear that he's supposed to be a babyface, but he's gone back to the goofy Chris Jericho, and the catchphrases. This is before it, and before Stupid Idiot, and before the list. This is just before that Chris Jericho. This is babyface Chris Jericho trying to be funny. The crowd in the arena buying it, but you're sat at home going,
there's a disconnect here. There's a disconnect.
He's sort of like, he's starting to become a middle-aged man who's not quite getting what people are thinking is like a funny... cool thing, because the Rooty Tooty Booty stuff is...
To be honest, it probably wasn't even that. It was probably just standard Jericho, but he comes up with so many solid gold things. Some things do have to crash and burn.
Yeah.
So maybe it would have got over. Maybe we would all been going mad for Rooty Tooty Booty and would have been great.
All that crap.
Never going to happen, was it?
But this is obviously him coming back once again to save WWE. He was talking about network subs having to go back up after him returning. Live event attendances, ratings, they all need a boost. And Chris Jericho is the answer. And he's the answer by saying things like Rooty, Tooty, Booty. This is a Chris Jericho that would have been hilarious about 15 years before. But it's the fact that it came 15 years after that was the issue.
And it wasn't really anything we hadn't seen before. For it being 15 years later, it was again sort of like the last one, just sort of a bit like flavour of everything, just thrown in a little bit and just get out there and be Chris Jericho. Because I think in WWE, when you're there for a long time, there reaches a point where they stop really trying with you, and unless you're a gimmick like the Undertaker, he doesn't have to try because he's the Undertaker. Hulk Hogan doesn't have to try because he's Hulk Hogan. John Cena doesn't have to try because he's John Cena. And then it's sort of like when you give somebody, or I imagine like when you give somebody who's as creative as Jericho that treatment of, just go out there, you're Chris Jericho. Like, and you're not neglecting them, but you just sort of, you have so much trust and faith in them that it's like, they'll be over no matter what. Or they'll, get the reaction we need to get. And I think that's where these last two have been just peppered in. And he's never going to be a person, I mean, as we know now, he's not the type of person that's just going to sit and rot away in one gimmick, even if that gimmick is just being Chris Jericho.
Yeah. So where are we going for cool dad? Cool, obviously, in inverted commas. Cool dad Chris Jericho.
I'd say it's a firm all right.
confirm all right. He's gone in the all right. Because obviously it would lead to the feud with AJ Styles at WrestleMania 32.
Yeah.
Y2AJ. Do you remember that? Those T-shirts.
Yeah, they sold them for like a week and a half, didn't they?
Yeah, the stuff with Dean Ambrose and the Ambrose Asylum.
Yeah.
But then we would get on to, I'm just going to say a sentence. He got the word "it" over.
He did. He got the word
He got
it
the word
over.
"it" over. It Chris Jericho, stupid idiot Chris Jericho, the list of Chris Jericho, the list of Chris Jericho, the list of Jericho. That's what it,
yeah.
That Jericho, the stuff with Kevin Owens, it all speaks for itself. Kevin Owens was the donkey. Chris Jericho was the goat. We go all the way through that. I maintain, I'm going to share it on Twitter after we've stopped this recording because it just came into my mind now. The Survivor Series 2016 kickoff show, where you got Chris Jericho, Universal Champion Kevin Owens, and Tom Phillips in whatever social media lounge they do. And Jericho and Owens just tear Tom Phillips a new arsehole. And it is absolutely fantastic.
I don't think I've
Owens
ever
is there
seen
mocking.
that.
Oh, I'm going to share it. It's unbelievable. Owens is just there mocking Tom Phillips' password. He's like, 69, you are disgusting. Stuff like that. And it just, Chris Jericho says, I'm wearing brown because I'm going to take you downtown to Chinatown. And Kevin was like, no, you're wearing black, Chris, but you used brown just to work in that rhyme. It's all, it's those two together were so fantastic. Obviously, we go all the way through to 2017, the Festival of Friendship. The heartbreaking scenes where the list comes out the box. Kevin Owens is giving Chris Jericho a present, but Jericho's name is on Kevin Owens' list. Bang, his face is in the TV screen and all that malarkey. The throwback to Shawn Michaels, obviously, and Jericho back in 2008. The match at WrestleMania 32, which was, for my money, the third best match on the card. You had Shane McMahon versus AJ Styles opening, was the best in my opinion. I loved Brock and
this is 33.
33, sorry.
Yeah.
Brock and Bill at 33. And then I thought those two were third. And I thought it was really silly of WWE to put that match on. I think it was second on the card,
This
wasn't
is
it?
the thing,
And it was...
this is the thing I don't understand, because wasn't this the match where Owens goes backstage and he says to Vince, was it okay? Did you like it? And Vince just goes, no. And he's really angry with him. And it's like, the finger on the rope and everything, I thought it was such a good match, and it had everybody like really buying into it in the stadium. It was good, but... Yeah, I mean, it's such a hell of a run. I think this is the best iteration of modern day Jericho we'd had for a long time. He actually had something he could sink his teeth into. It seems to be whenever he's given that little bit of leeway, but with some constraints, like that, they're just like, you can go out there and do this, but it's all going to angle and end here. And they just let him have fun with it. It seems that's when you get the best stuff out of him. Because him and Owens and the Festival of Friendship, man, you know it's iconic because they made a figure out of it. They made a figure of the moment. Like,
I think I read somewhere that Jericho had to push for that segment to be how it was.
Really?
Vince McMahon and Triple H wanted to do something different. I'm sure I've read that somewhere. And thank God they listened to Chris Jericho.
Like, straight through the TV. It's great. Absolutely great.
Yeah. So there we have. We don't need to say anything else about that. It was a travesty that match was on second or third or whatever it was at WrestleMania 33. Should have been the main event. That was the match everyone was most invested in.
Yeah, for sure.
But then bloody Bill had to come along at Fastlane, didn't he, and win the title off Owens. Prick. Anyway, we move on. He takes a little break again from professional wrestling, but then, I'm sure to your glee and delight, he rocks up in New Japan Pro Wrestling. The Alpha versus Omega.
This was
for
nuts.
me, personally, before you go off on your big rant I'm sure you got coming up, the face paint, the hat, it doesn't work for me, Sam.
Initially I was like, but I sort of got it toward the end, like the weird sort of clown-esque sort of thing. He's like, he's this sad, evil, like, I don't know, but it just works after you get it. But when I initially saw it, I was like, he looks ridiculous. But it didn't matter what he looked like because he turned up in New Japan. And it was just on video and everything. I think me and Jack were getting ready to turn off the stream. Or like it was just sort of happening as it went, and then it was revealed to be Jericho. And we just lost our minds. Like the fact that Jericho was coming back, the fact he was targeting Omega, the fact that they had like a great match. That I think all of his matches in New Japan have been pretty solid. Little repetitive here and there, but like, I mean, Christ, look at the guy's age, and he's out there with somebody much younger than him, just smashing it out the park. But ultimately, I don't know. I don't think it's in the best. I don't think it's in the best tier because the gimmick is literally just I'm wrestling legend Chris Jericho and I'm coming to get you. But it did lead to some really good moments with like press He obviously had the thing with Naito, when he's sprinting after him. You had him and Tanahashi. They got everything they physically could out of him, every last drop. But I think if he's to go back there and do more, we need something new. Definitely.
Wow. I did want my personal highlight, because Jericho is a big reason I started watching more New Japan, because obviously I know who he is.
Yeah.
He can introduce me to new faces and whatnot. But the press conferences that Jericho would have, where he would just swear
and
his use of
attack a member of the press.
Yeah, and flip the tables and everything. It was all good, because he was very much going into that old, because wrestling fans in Japan legitimately get scared of the heels, don't they? And he was trying to be that big, scary Stan Hansen, I'm going to actually, club you around the face,
crowd,
wrestling fan. Yeah. He was trying to lean into that, and I thought he was great at that. Is there any difference between the Alpha and the Painmaker? Because as far as I can remember, I don't think there is there?
I don't think there's very much difference in terms of the actual gimmick themselves. As I said, the gimmick here is pretty much, I'm wrestling legend Chris Jericho. Now I'm mad with you. And he sort of spins around and picks somebody to be mad at. But it was more about the visual and actually seeing him back there. And I think for that alone, it's lovely. But as I said, if they're going to do anything else with it, it needs to change.
I'm going to put you in the Booker's position, Sam. What would you do with Chris Jericho to bring him back to New Japan Pro Wrestling?
I'd leave him for a while, and then I'd have him lead some AEW people in there.
An invasion?
Could do. Maybe have him tag with somebody from AEW. And
just saucy bugger.
Run through something like that. Well, I just want to see a different dynamic to him, because he's obviously gone on a big singles tear, so a tag run might be quite cool.
And then speaking about tag teams and stables and all of that malarkey, we get on to our last Chris Jericho gimmick, Le Champion himself, a little bit of the bubbly. Excuse me. I've not been drinking, I swear. We get on to AEW's version of Chris Jericho. Latterly, of course, the Demo God, which I'm not too on board with because I'm pissing sick of hearing about the demographics.
And there's only one Demo God anyway, and it's Guy Fieri. Guy Fieri is the Demo God.
Although he is a heel, isn't he? So of course he's going to pick something that fans don't like to
I thought you meant Fieri there.
I
was like, he absolutely is with those t-shirts, but yeah.
Yeah, of course he is. And that hair. And the hair. All of it. We're going to get slaughtered for... I've never seen anything with Guy Fieri on. I just know he's a very popular
you never
man.
watched Triple D? You got to watch Triple D.
It.
It's just like watch some obscene food getting made by just crazy chefs.
Wow.
And then Guy Fieri just stands there, eats it and goes, delicious! And moves on to another place. And then he has like a janky supermarket sweep style show called Guy's Grocery Games, which is the one that's dicking over WWE and AEW.
What, is it like supermarket sweep?
Sort of, yeah. Except I think you cook with the items that you take. So it's like MasterChef meets supermarket sweep, yeah.
It's a hybrid of all the greats. No wonder the wrestlers get this arse added to it. Wrestling needs more supermarket sweep. There we go. You can take that one. Anyway, Le Champion, the Demo God, a little bit of the bubbly. You're thinking when he joins AEW and he's beating Kenny Omega, we were there, weren't we, Sam?
Yeah.
Maybe you're thinking, oh no, this is what we've seen before. We've seen the old, aging professional wrestler come in and take all the spotlight from the guys and the gals down below who should be having it today. But no, it's been the opposite. How AEW have been using Chris Jericho with the promos. Less wrestling, more promos, and the promos have been hits, pretty much all of them. The one with the spoof of Cody and Brandy's obviously been the highlight. With
all of his recent stuff with Orange Cassidy's been great as well.
Yeah, it's just been fantastic. I don't know what you say about it.
No, this is the thing. It's like, how can a guy who's been wrestling for 30 years still pop up, not even 2 years ago, and just has this entirely new thing? And then sporadic little things, like he must be a really silly person as a person in general, Jericho. He must just walk around the house doing funny voices and making silly noises and telling crap jokes. Because it's always off-the-cuff stuff, like Little Bit of the Bubbly was just a throwaway, silly voice. That was it, and it became the most over thing in wrestling for a matter of weeks. And you just got to commend him. Like, the creativity that guy's got. I think he should branch beyond music and keep wrestling, keep doing music, but I'd like to see him make a film just to see how mental it would be.
He tried the acting, didn't he? Late.
I mean, write and direct a film.
Oh, right, and direct a film.
Yeah.
That would be some silly bollocks, that would have he gotten. in the director's chair. I've put him in the best, Sam, because that's where he belongs. He's been absolutely fantastic. Long may he continue doing what he's doing.
Are there many better characters than him today in wrestling? No. That's mental.
Yeah.
But that's how good he is.
And it's weird. It's just testament to him, because on the surface, he's old wrestler who still thinks he's as good as he once was, which he probably is. He's obviously slower in the ring, but that's mother time, isn't it? Mother nature, father time, all the parents. But he's essentially just cocky heel, and he still is one of the best characters in professional wrestling today. And it's just some people. It just makes you sick and how talented they are.
And he's got a cruise.
And he's got his own bloody cruise boat. I don't think he owns it personally, but there you go. Anyway, there we have our tier ranking for Chris Jericho, as is tradition with this tier. This is going to be a hard one. We have to rank who's in the best tier, so we find out beyond any doubt what is the best incarnation of Chris Jericho. We'll quickly run through the tiers. Just because we saw so little of him, we have Cowboy Chris Jericho without the H. From whatever place in Wyoming. Then we have Lionheart and Super Liger. We have the 2007 return Chris Jericho, the Codebreaker Jericho, and Cool Dad Jericho from early 2016. Then we have the lovely tier of Thrillseeker Chris Jericho, Rockstar Chris Jericho, Undisputed Champion Chris Jericho, Silent Chris Jericho, and the Painmaker / Alpha Chris Jericho. And then we get to the best tier, Sam, and I'm going to rattle off a series of questions and just tell me what you're thinking. Is Y2J Jericho? Who's Jericho? Y2J Jericho better than conspiracy like WCW Chris Jericho?
Yeah.
Yes, he's gone for a yes. I would have said no personally.
Oh,
come on then, tier.
Which one's Y2J? Is that just debut in WWE?
Yeah.
All right, now go with yeah, because WCW we had.
Get in.
Yeah.
Then we have the best in the world at what he does, Jericho. Is he better than WCW conspiracy victim, man of 1,000 holds, Chris Jericho?
No.
Is the list Kevin Owens' run, Chris Jericho, better than WCW Chris Jericho?
Oh, it's close.
This is a big call.
It's close, this, isn't it? If it's not better than, it's as good as, or just below it.
Just below, he's gone for. We need this dramatic music you put on last week's video with the one with the expressive face.
Axel F.
And then just to round things off, is Le Champion better than WCW Chris Jericho?
Again, it's really hard, because like...
It is really hard, Sam.
He's so much better in certain areas, but he's not better in other areas, and this is how good he is. Like it's that hard to choose between his gimmicks, and there are this many of them. I'd say no, it's not as good, but again, it's probably up there, equal to like.
So have we got a triple three-way? A triple three-way?
We've got a triple three-way with all 9.
Do we have a triple threat as the best of the best for Chris Jericho?
That's for me. I don't know if you change any of that.
My personal favourite, I would go Conspiracy Victim, then List of Jericho, then Le Champion. I would go that order. Then rounding off the best, I would go Y2J, bottom of the best, and then the best in the world at what he does just above that.
Yeah.
But he's an unbelievable man. Unbelievable professional wrestler. Got to be now in the conversation for many people's Mount Rushmores of professional wrestling.
All time.
A few years ago, if you're heading into sort of 2016, I don't think he would be. But his work since 2016, especially for me, he's got him right up there with the very best there's ever been. Any closing thoughts on this tier ranking malarkey about Chris Jericho's gimmicks? Any ones I've missed off in your mind?
He is coming for us now with his newer gimmick. It's not his newest gimmick, but TV narrator Chris Jericho. He's very good at it, and it's making me nervous. He's going to come and take all of our videos. That's it.
Hey, Chris, if you are watching, which is very doubtful, come in and do a voiceover for Cultaholic. We'll pay you things.
We'll pay you in old metal albums. It'll be fine.
If you just any old wrestler. I've got some wrestling figures in the bottom of my cupboard at home if you want them. I've got this.
I'll tweet Sebastian back and tell him that he sucks every day if you come and do a video. Go on.
Yeah. Bollocks to that, Sebastian. bat fella. Yeah, you don't look like him at all. You don't mime at all. You're fantastic, Chris Jericho. Anyway, Chris Jericho is fantastic. This much we knew. Conspiracy victim, cruiserweight division, man of 1,000 holds. Chris Jericho is, in our opinion, the best Chris Jericho, although the list of Jericho, Le Champion are not far behind. Gary/Sam, it's been a pleasure once again. Anything to say before we wrap up this video?
No, this was a really hard one to do. I'm sure we're going to get absolutely slaughtered in the comments by everybody, but, you know, that's just the name of the game. Yeah.
That's the name of the game. We put ourselves out there. We have to take the flat that comes our way.
Yeah.
Call me a see you next Tuesday, all you want. I enjoy it. I, in fact, get off to it. I don't actually do that. Let's end the video. I've been Ross Twiddell from Cultaholic.com. Oh, that's the one that's going to bite me in the arse one day, no doubt about it. But yeah, say anything you want to me. I don't really care. I've been Gary YouTube from Cultaholic.com. That's been Gary YouTube, also from Cultaholic.com. We'll see you next time
Tatty
on these
bye.
tier ranking malarkeys. We'll see you soon.